Some of the things that we found, which are shocking, billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I say we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. And we want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation.
Okay, so Trump just handed out a pardon to a Democrat. Yeah, you heard that right, a Democrat. Not just any Democrat, but a guy who is staring down federal bribery charges. Nearly $600,000 in bribes, by the way. And Trump swoops in, wipes it all clean, thinking he's about to flip this guy to the Republican side. Genius move, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because Henry Cuellar, the Texas Democrat Trump just pardoned, he turned right around and said thanks for the pardon, but I'm staying Democrat. And then, he announced he's running for re-election in 2026 as a Democrat. Can you believe this? Trump is losing his mind over it. He goes on Truth Social, because of course he does, and he's blasting Cuellar for being disloyal. He's talking about how Texas voters won't like this, how Cuellar's own daughters won't like this. Yeah, he brought the man's kids into it. This is wild.
But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
So let me get this straight. Trump pardons a guy who's facing serious criminal charges, bribery charges tied to Azerbaijan and a Mexican bank, the kind of charges that could send you away for years. He does this thinking Cuellar is going to be grateful enough to switch teams, help the Republicans hold on to their razor-thin House majority, but instead, Cuellar just takes the pardon and stays right where he is, with the Democrats. And now Trump's out here looking like he got played. Like he just handed out presidential clemency, one of the most powerful tools a president has, and got absolutely nothing in return. This isn't just embarrassing, this is a full-blown backfire, and it's happening right in front of everyone. Here's the thing though, this story isn't just about one pardon gone wrong, it's about so much more than that. It's about Trump's whole approach to loyalty, it's about how he uses pardons like bargaining chips, it's about the 2026 midterms and the GOP's desperate fight to keep control of the House, and it's about whether Trump's tactics are starting to fall apart. Because come on, if you can't even get a guy you just saved from prison to join your team, what does that say? What does that say about your political power? What does that say about the deals you're trying to make? And Cuellar, he's not backing down either. He went on Fox News and said anybody who puts party before country is doing a disservice. He's basically saying Trump can keep his loyalty demands, he's staying Democrat no matter what. No matter how much Trump complains on social media, no matter how much pressure the GOP tries to put on him. This is the kind of story that tells you everything you need to know about where we are right now. Trump's in his second term, he's supposed to be consolidating power, building coalitions, getting ready for the midterms, but instead he's handing out pardons to people who don't even want to be on his side, and then throwing public tantrums when they don't switch parties. You can't make this up, you really can't. And the timing? Oh, the timing is perfect. We're heading into 2026, the midterms are coming, every single House seat matters, the Republicans have one of the slimmest majorities in modern history, they need every vote they can get. And Trump just wasted a pardon, one that could have been used strategically, on a guy who laughed in his face and stayed with the other team. So yeah, this is going to be fun to break down, because there's layers to this. There's the pardon itself, there's the bribery case, there's Trump's immigration angle, because of course he tried to tie this to border security. There's the loyalty issue, there's the 2026 midterms, there's what this means for Trump's ability to wheel and deal going forward. And honestly, this might be one of the most telling moments of Trump's second term so far. Not because it's the biggest scandal, not because it's the most dramatic, but because it shows the cracks. It shows what happens when Trump's transactional approach to politics meets reality, when people don't play by his rules, when loyalty can't be bought, even with a presidential pardon. So buckle up, we're diving deep into this mess. We're going to talk about who Henry Cuellar really is, why Trump thought this would work, what the bribery charges were actually about, and what this whole thing means for the future of Trump's second term and the GOP's chances in 2026. Because this isn't just a story about one failed pardon. This is a story about power, about leverage, about what happens when the President of the United States tries to use the pardon power like a business deal and it blows up in his face. Let's get into it. Alright, so let's back up and talk about who Henry Cuellar actually is, because if you're not from Texas, or if you don't follow congressional politics super closely, you might be wondering why Trump even cared about this guy in the first place. Henry Cuellar represents Texas's 28th congressional district. That's down in South Texas, Laredo area, right on the border. And here's the thing about Cuellar. He's always been a conservative Democrat, like really conservative, especially on immigration. He's been critical of open border policies. He's pushed back against some of the more progressive wings of his own party, and that's made him kind of a target from both sides. Progressive Democrats don't like him because he's too moderate, too willing to work with Republicans on border stuff. But Republicans, they've been eyeing him for years, thinking maybe, just maybe, they could flip him, get him to switch parties. Because if you're going to flip a Democrat anywhere, it's going to be someone like Cuellar in a district like his. So when Cuellar got indicted last year, Trump saw an opportunity. The charges were serious, really serious. Cuellar and his wife were accused of accepting nearly $600,000 in bribes. The money allegedly came from Azerbaijan, yeah, the country, and a Mexican bank. The indictment claimed they were acting as foreign agents, doing favors in exchange for cash. Classic corruption charges. Now Cuellar denied everything, said it was politically motivated, and honestly, a lot of people on both sides thought the timing was weird. The charges came during an election year. There were questions about whether this was the Biden Justice Department going after a Democrat who didn't toe the party line. Was it legitimate prosecution, or was it political payback? Depends who you ask. But Trump, he jumped on that narrative. He called it a weaponized prosecution, said the Biden administration was targeting Cuellar because he opposed open borders. And then Trump did what Trump does. He pardoned him, just wiped the charges clean, preemptive pardon, before there was even a trial, before any conviction, just boom, done. And Trump made it clear why he was doing this. He put out a statement saying Cuellar was being prosecuted for opposing open borders, for standing up for border security, for being tough on immigration. Trump framed this as saving a guy who was on the right side of the border issue, even if he was technically a Democrat. But here's where it gets interesting. Trump also made it pretty clear he expected something in return. He didn't say it outright in the pardon statement. But come on, we all know how Trump operates. Everything's a deal. Everything's transactional. You do something for me, I do something for you. And Trump clearly thought Cuellar was gonna flip, was gonna switch parties, help the GOP, show some loyalty. Except that's not what happened. Not even close. Cuellar came out almost immediately after the pardon and said thanks, but no thanks on the party switch. He announced he's running for re-election in 2026 as a Democrat, and he didn't just quietly announce it. He went on Fox News, and said anybody who puts party before country is doing a disservice. He basically told Trump and the GOP that loyalty demands don't matter to him, that he's staying where he is, that he's not for sale. Can you imagine? Trump just handed this guy a get-out-of-jail-free card, literally saved him from potentially years in federal prison, and Cuellar's response is basically, cool, thanks, still a Democrat though. Trump lost it. He went on Truth Social, as he does, and posted about how this is such a lack of loyalty, how Texas voters aren't gonna like this. And then, and this is where it gets really personal, he brought up Cuellar's daughters. He mentioned that Cuellar's kids had written a letter asking for the pardon, and Trump's implying that even they're gonna be disappointed their dad didn't switch parties. Like, what? You're bringing the man's children into this? Because he didn't switch political parties after you pardoned him. This is where Trump's whole loyalty obsession goes off the rails. Because yeah, Cuellar's daughters probably wanted their dad pardoned. Who wouldn't? But that doesn't mean they expected him to become a Republican. That's not how family works. That's not how any of this works, and the whole thing just makes Trump look weak. It makes him look like he got played, like he didn't think this through, like he assumed the pardon would buy him something, and then got shocked when it didn't. And for a guy whose whole brand is being the ultimate deal maker, the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal, this is not a good look. But let's talk about why Trump thought this might work in the first place. Because it's not totally crazy. Cuellar's district is conservative. It's on the border. Trump won that area in 2020. There's a real argument that Cuellar's political survival depends on staying moderate, on working with Republicans, on not being too far left. And the GOP has been making inroads in South Texas. They've been winning over Hispanic voters who care about border security, who don't like the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, who want tougher immigration policies. So in theory, yeah, Cuellar could have switched. It would have been a big deal. It would have given the GOP another seat in the House. It would have sent a message that even Democrats in border districts are jumping ship. But Cuellar didn't do it. And there's a few reasons why. First, he's been a Democrat his whole career. His political identity is wrapped up in being a moderate Democrat. Switching parties would mean abandoning that. It would mean admitting the GOP is his real home, and clearly, he doesn't believe that. Second, there's a pragmatic angle here. If Cuellar switches to Republican, he's going to face a primary challenge from the right. Trump supporters are going to say he's not a real Republican, he's a convert, he's suspect, and he might lose. Whereas if he stays a Democrat, he can run as the moderate, who stood up to Trump, who didn't sell out, who took the pardon but didn't compromise his principles. That's actually a stronger political position in a lot of ways. And third, there's the whole issue of Trump's loyalty demands. Cuellar straight up said it on Fox News. He's not putting party before country. He's not going to be Trump's lapdog just because Trump did him a favor. And honestly, that resonates with a lot of voters, even in conservative districts. People respect independence. They respect someone who doesn't just fall in line because they got something out of it. So now Trump's stuck. He used a pardon, something that's supposed to be about mercy and justice, as a political tool. And it backfired. He doesn't have Cuellar on his side. He doesn't have another seat for the GOP. And he's out here on social media looking petty and vindictive because the guy he pardoned didn't do what he wanted. And this isn't the first time Trump's used pardons this way. Remember all the January 6th pardons? The people he's pardoned from his own circle? The way he talks about pardons like they're favors he's handing out? This has been a pattern, but usually the people he pardons are already loyal to him. They're already in his camp. This is one of the first times he tried to buy loyalty with a pardon, and it didn't work. And that raises some serious questions. What does this mean for other pardons going forward? Is Trump going to be more careful? Or is he going to double down? Is he going to keep trying to use clemency as a bargaining chip? And what happens when other people see that you can take a Trump pardon and not give him anything in return? Does that undermine the whole transactional approach he's been using? We're going to get into all that in the next section. But for now, just sit with this. Trump pardoned a Democrat, expected him to flip, and got told no, publicly, on Fox News. And now he's having a meltdown on social media about loyalty. This is where we are. This is Trump's second term, and it's only going to get messier. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters here, because this story is bigger than just one pardon. It's bigger than just one congressman. This is about Trump's strategy, about the 2026 midterms, about loyalty, about power, and about what happens when transactional politics doesn't work the way you planned. First point, Trump's pardon power is becoming a problem. And I don't mean legally, I mean politically. Because every time Trump hands out a pardon now, people are asking what the angle is. What's he getting out of it? Who's he helping? And when it becomes obvious that he's using pardons to try to buy loyalty or build political alliances, it cheapens the whole thing. It makes people cynical. And it opens him up to exactly what happened with Cuellar, where the pardon doesn't work, and he looks foolish. Pardons are supposed to be about mercy, right? About correcting injustices, about giving people second chances. But when you turn them into political tools, when you're pardoning people because you want them to join your team or help you in Congress, you're changing what a pardon means. You're making it transactional, and that's a problem.
Because now every pardon Trump issues is going to be scrutinized. People are going to ask what he's getting in return. And if he doesn't get anything like with Cuellar, it makes him look weak. It makes him look like he's wasting the pardon power. And for a guy whose whole brand is strength and winning, that's not where he wants to be. Second point, the 2026 midterms are going to be brutal for Trump and the GOP. And this Cuellar thing is a preview of why. The Republicans have a tiny majority in the House right now. We're talking single digits. Every seat matters. Every vote matters. And Trump just wasted political capital trying to flip a seat that didn't flip. Think about the math here. If the GOP loses even a handful of seats in 2026, they lose the House. And if they lose the House, Trump's entire agenda grinds to a halt. No major legislation, no budget wins, just investigations and gridlock. So every seat they can't pick up, every opportunity they miss, it matters.
And Trump just blew one. He had a chance to maybe flip Cuellar, and he played it wrong. He came on too strong with the loyalty demands. He made it too obvious what he wanted, and Cuellar said no. Now the GOP has to figure out how to either beat Cuellar in 2026, which is going to be tough because he's got name recognition and he can play the independent card, or they have to find another way to pick up seats somewhere else. But here's the thing. This isn't just about one seat. This is about Trump's whole approach to coalition building. He thinks he can demand loyalty. He thinks he can make deals where people owe him. But politics doesn't always work like business. You can't just do someone a favor and expect them to fall in line, especially not in Congress, especially not when their political identity and future is on the line. And this is going to keep happening. Trump's going to keep running into people who don't do what he expects, who don't bend to his will, who take what he offers and then go their own way. And every time that happens, it chips away at his image, at the idea that he's this master deal maker who always gets what he wants. Third point, Cuellar might have just become the most interesting congressman in America. Because think about his position now. He's a Democrat who got pardoned by a Republican president. He's a border district moderate who stood up to Trump's loyalty demands. He's running for re-election in 2026 in a district that Trump won, and he's got a story to tell. He can campaign on independence, on not being bought, on taking the pardon because it was the right thing to do, but not selling out his principles. That's a powerful narrative, especially in a political environment where people are tired of partisan nonsense, where voters want to see someone who stands up to pressure from both sides. And the Democrats, they're going to love this. They're going to hold Cuellar up as an example of someone who didn't cave to Trump, who showed that you can accept help without becoming a puppet. The National Party might not love everything about Cuellar's conservative positions, but they'll love the fact that he told Trump no. Meanwhile, Trump's base, they're going to be furious. They're going to see this as a betrayal, as another example of Democrats being ungrateful. And Trump's going to keep feeding that narrative. He's going to keep posting about Cuellar, keep bringing it up at rallies, keep using it as an example of why you can't trust Democrats. But here's the problem for Trump. The more he complains about this, the weaker he looks. Because he's the one who made the decision to pardon Cuellar. Nobody forced him. He thought he was making a smart play, and it backfired. So every time he brings it up, he's reminding people that he got played. Fourth point. This is about immigration and border policy too. Because Trump tried to frame the Cuellar pardon around border security. He said Cuellar was being prosecuted for opposing open borders, for being tough on immigration, and that was supposed to tie this into Trump's broader agenda, make it about policy, not just politics. But now that angle's muddled, because if Cuellar's staying a Democrat, and he's still going to vote with Democrats on most things, then what was the point? Trump didn't secure any real border policy wins here. He didn't get an ally in Congress who's going to help him pass immigration legislation. He just pardoned a guy and got nothing. And that's going to raise questions going forward. Is Trump going to keep pardoning people who agree with him on one issue but not others? Is that the standard now? Because if it is, that opens the door to all kinds of complications. It means the pardon power becomes about policy alignment instead of justice, and that's a slippery slope. So let's bring this home. What does all this mean? Where does this leave us? Trump's second term is revealing some cracks. His transactional approach to politics, the loyalty demands, the deals, the expectations of reciprocity, it's not working as smoothly as it used to. People are pushing back. They're taking what he offers and not giving him what he wants, and that's making him look less powerful, less in control. The 2026 midterms are going to be a referendum on this, on whether Trump can actually build and maintain a coalition, on whether his tactics work when he's not on the ballot himself. And right now, based on the Cuellar situation, it's not looking great. And for Cuellar, he's sitting pretty. He's got a pardon, he's got a narrative, and he's got Trump mad at him, which honestly might help him with moderate voters who are tired of Trump's act. This story isn't over. Trump's going to keep complaining about it. Cuellar's going to keep campaigning as a Democrat. The GOP is going to keep scrambling to hold on to the House, and we're all going to keep watching to see if Trump's whole approach to power starts to unravel, because that's what this is really about. It's not just about one pardon. It's about whether Trump's way of doing politics, the deals, the loyalty, the transactional nature of everything, whether that actually works, or whether it's just a house of cards waiting to collapse. And based on what we've seen this week, the cracks are showing, and it's only going to get more interesting from here. So yeah, Trump pardoned a Democrat, thought he'd flip him, got told no, and now he's throwing a tantrum on social media. Classic Trump, classic mess. And we're only getting started with this second term. Stay tuned, because if this is what December looks like, 2026 is going to be absolutely wild.